Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this week's interview we have Amy Wong, who's a production controller at Bloomsbury. Hope you find it useful and enjoy.
Hi, I'm Amy and I'm a production controller at Bloomsbury Publishing, where I work on a mixture of adult fiction and non-fiction. So my job involves project managing the process of turning an author's work into a printed physical book, and also the corresponding ebook edition as well. I usually describe production as having three main aims, which are to make sure that books get made on time, that they stay within their agreed budget, or that they are making enough of a profit. And third aim is to make sure that books are made to a high standard so that the end customer is getting a high quality product. In terms of what that means for my average work day, the short answer is a lot of emails. Typical tasks for me include sending an author's manuscript to a typesetter who will then turn it into a PDF, which is formatted in the way that you'd see in the final book, so making sure that the text is the right size and the right font and that any images are positioned correctly as well. I also spend quite a lot of time costing titles, so working out how much they'll cost to make, so that's everything from manufacturing costs, how much it actually costs to print the thing, but also costs like paying to have the text proofread or indexed, and also if there are any kind of permission fees that need to be paid for us to be able to use certain photos or images. That all has to be taken into account, and it's really important that I do that because at the end of the day, publishing is a business and one of the aims is to make money, and so every book I work on I have to sort of be certain that it is making a good profit. Sometimes that means sort of thinking of ways that we can save money. So for example, if a designer wants to use a lot of foil, that will be very expensive, so it might be that I suggest that we use metallic ink instead, which will be cheaper but have a similar effect. When I am discussing kind of cover specs with designers, I am not just looking at how cost effective the kind of idea is, but also how feasible, like kind of how practically possible it is, if that makes sense. So for example, if a designer wants to do a foiled design but they also have made it quite intricate, it might be that a lot of that detail would be lost, so I would have to sort of talk to them about either making the design more simple or using something else to create the effect they're after. I also have to sometimes review schedules for different books, different dates by which the different stages have to be done. So when does a cover need to be approved by, or when does a printer need files? Schedules do change sometimes. It might be, for example, that a publicist has arranged an event for which they need copies earlier, so then I then have to kind of adjust all the dates in the schedule and feed that back to the different departments and see what is possible and what we can do to make an earlier delivery date possible. I also do spend a lot of time trying to get approvals from other departments for things like covers, and also checking files myself, making sure that there's nothing in there which could cause an issue at the printer. So for example, making sure that any images are high enough resolution, and making sure that if we're doing any finishes like embossing where parts of the cover will be raised, or spot UV where parts of the cover will be kind of glossy, making sure that those are all aligned properly and sort of match up to the artwork. And finally, as a production controller, I do obviously send books to press, so that means sending kind of files like the cover and the text to the printer, along with what's known as a purchase order, which contains instructions for what we want the book to be like. So, what type of paper we want to use, kind of how many pages there'll be, kind of what finishes we want on the cover, and also when we actually want the books to be delivered as well. So I think communication is the big one. Publishing is quite a collaborative process, and in production you are working with other departments and external suppliers quite a lot of the time. I think the sort of other group of skills I would say is quite useful is all related to organisation, so organising your workload, sort of being able to manage your time and knowing how to prioritize different tasks. So in production, in my job, I am never just working on one book at any one time. I'm working on multiple books, and they're all at different stages. So it's really important that I'm able to keep on top of that. I would also say that it's important to have an eye for detail, which will come in handy when doing things like checking files or when you're sending a purchase order to a printer and making sure that all the information on there is accurate. Another one which I think people find surprising is numeracy skills. I think people tend to associate publishing with words rather than numbers, maybe. Yeah, definitely I do spend a lot of time calculating costs in production, so those numeracy skills are important to have. But at the same time, I would say, don't get alarmed by that, I guess, in that it's nothing kind of overly complex. I think as long as you sort of have like basic math skills, I think you'd be fine. Problem solving is also a skill I would say that is useful for production. So you can have the best plan in the world, but even so, things will inevitably go wrong sometimes, and sometimes it won't even be something that you could have controlled. So in those situations, it is important that you're able to kind of keep calm under pressure and, find a way forward and find a solution. Lastly, I would say negotiation is another important skill to have, and at this point, I think I really wish there was another word for skill that I could find. But yeah, I think negotiation is an important skill. I think it's important kind of for things like negotiating prices with printers or even schedules, but I would also say that when you're applying for entry-level jobs, I don't think most companies would expect you to kind of be an expert negotiator kind of right from the beginning. However, I know that I have been asked in interviews how I would approach a negotiation, so I think even if you don't have direct experience of doing that, it is sort of useful to kind of think about how you would approach it, I guess. I feel like compared to other people I know in other departments, I don't tend to have a lot of meetings, which sometimes I am very grateful for. Aside from my sort of general catch-ups with my manager and my team, the two main meetings or types of meetings I tend to have are the print books meeting and progress meetings. So for every title that I work on, I have to run what's known as a profit and loss report, or P&L as it's commonly abbreviated to. And this basically includes lots of information about the book. So it includes sort of how many copies we're going to print, price it will be, how long it will be, finishes they'll be on the cover. And it basically, the point of the P&L is, I guess, weigh up all the costs that will go into making it and how much income the book is likely to generate through sales, and that will kind of tell you what sort of profit the book is likely to make. And so in the print fix meeting, this information is reviewed and it's decided, if we do have like the official approval to go ahead with the current plan, if we need to change anything. So it might be that we decide that actually maybe we should kind of print more copies, so that's something that could change. So in terms of progress meetings, these are usually meetings which involve production, editorial and design, and we tend to go through every upcoming title and just make sure that everything's on track. It's not on track, that we have a plan to kind of make up the time or kind of get it back on track. I actually work on books for both Bloomsbury UK and the US, so I do have kind of two sets of progress meetings with the kind of different branches of the company. This isn't common to production, but I would say make it really clear in your applications and during interviews that production is the department that you definitely want to work in and that you're not just trying to get any old job in publishing. I would also say to make sure that you read job descriptions very carefully. I know that I was surprised by how much jobs can vary even when the job title is the same. One thing I wish I'd known sooner about the industry is how great social media can be for expanding your network and meeting new people. I didn't always live in London. I only kind of moved here when I got my second publishing job at Bloomsbury. I remember just feeling quite cut off from the industry. Like, I couldn't go to events, for example, where I could meet more people very easily. Now I kind of see people interacting on Twitter, and I also see kind of groups like the Publishing Hopeful groups on Facebook. I guess I just kind of wish that had been around, or that I had been brave enough to kind of start that kind of thing when I was starting out in publishing. I would have really liked to have known more people who were in the same position as me, kind of applying for jobs. I think I would have really have appreciated. So that's definitely one thing I wish I I'd known before. My favourite part of my job is definitely seeing finished copies of the books that I've been working on. I spend a lot of time kind of seeing books as PDFs on my computer. I think there's just something really satisfying about being able to see a book in real life, knowing that you played a part in making it. The most challenging aspect of my job is definitely staying on top of everything. I'm often working on a lot of books at any one moment in time. I think it can be tricky kind of keeping track of where everything is at. So I think one of my favourite memories will always be volunteering for the Society of Young Publishers. I was on the UK committee for 2 years, first as membership secretary and then as UK vice chair. I just found it really kind of rewarding to be able to kind of help people who were looking to get into the industry or trying to get ahead, and I did also meet some brilliant people through volunteering for the SYP. That will always be one of my favourite memories, and I would definitely recommend that everyone joins it as well. I am a little bit wary of saying that, you know, everyone should read a certain book just because I know that everyone's tastes are different. But one of my recent favourites is Tiny Moons, A Year of Eating in Shanghai by Mingya Powles. I really like writing about food just generally, but this book in particular, I liked how food is used to kind of explore kind of identity and a person's place in the world, and I do find something quite comforting about the writing style as well.